All right, thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Justin Starr, Endowed Professor of Advanced Technology at CCAC, kicking off our live stream event. I'm at the Moonshot Museum with our student presenters, and I just wanted to say a few words to kick things off so that those of you watching across the street at CCAC main campus, or those of you watching at home, get some context for how today's going to unfold. So each of our student groups is going to present a summary of their experiment that they put in PowerPoint format. Presentations, we ask the students to take no more than about 10 minutes. Mike, one of our judges, will give a 2-minute warning so you'll know if you're about to run out of time. After our students present on their experiments, the judges will have a chance to ask questions. Students will be passing the microphone around. So students, if you remember and you can say the question when you answer it, that'll make sure everyone on the live stream knows what's going on because they might not hear the judges. So if a judge says, how did you think of this experiment? And you could say, oh, great question. How did we think of this experiment? Everyone at home will play along nicely. If y'all forget, no big deal. We're just excited at seeing your story and hearing about your experiments. I did want to introduce our judges because we got a little frantic over at CCAC before we walked here. We're so thrilled to have 3 esteemed judges from the space community evaluating our student presentations. So we're very grateful to have astronaut Warren Woody Hoberg with us from NASA. We're excited to have a senior engineer from Astrobotic, Carrie Quinn, and we're excited to have the director of learning and outreach at Moonshot Museum, Mike Hennessy, here to evaluate the student presentations. 2 of our judges, Carrie and Mike, participated last year, so they're very familiar with the great ideas CCAC students have. Woody's on loan to us from NASA for the day, but he's thrilled to look at the student projects and see what we have here. One thing, if you're watching at home, we're going to go dark after the student presentations because the judges are going to talk a little bit and it wouldn't be fair to everyone else to live stream what the judges are saying. So if the live stream cuts out for a few minutes, know that that's going on behind the scenes, and then we'll resume with the next group just a few minutes later. So those of you watching at home, I hope you enjoyed the show. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to our first group, a group of mechatronics students who have a very interesting experiment about black mold. So without further ado, go ahead, guys.
Is it on? Okay. Is it on? It's not on. Okay, it's on. As far as the actual experiment itself is concerned, he said black mold, and that is the topic, but the main issue itself is how it works as not just a organism, but how it can survive in conditions that we can test both here and hopefully on the ISS, that being actual, real, non-simulated microgravitational conditions. Because while we do have microgravity itself here, and develop something similar to that, or at least a prototype of, and you're just, as far as the effects of microgravity are on this growth, the metabolism, the morphology of the black fungi, specifically the metabolism of the synthetic polyester that is its food source, and microgravity simulator that both meets existing biomedical clinostat standards and then produces similar results to the fungi exposed to real microgravity on board the ISS. This experiment will serve as like a test of sorts, even if ours is not 100% successful because, well, we haven't had the chance to actually use real simulated microgravity yet. Hopefully groups in the future can make use of our data for future findings to further refine the process. And as for the background of the subject matter, the black fungi, which is designated Kerosinosis K order, it is extremely resilient to radiation, malnutrition, far below sub-zero temperatures and extreme heat. The only remaining thing to test upon it is microgravity, which for one reason or other just has not been bothered. And we saw that because a lot of other fungi and plants, they react far exponential growth-wise when it comes to microgravity because there's nothing for them to grow against. So in a way, because it's durable, it can survive the trip to the space station, and once it has, it can be studied, and the growth can be recorded completely. Here, actually, no, my bad. Sorry. And once it, I'm so sorry. Where is I? I think that's pretty much it.
And what we see is opportunity in this time when we use what we could simulate. I don't think it's just limited at fungi or black mold. This could be something to do, in agriculture, and there are many fields where this is applicable. When it comes to the topic of microgravity, we see this dapper fellow right here. There is a there's a huge opportunity for us to make something cost effective, and what we're really looking for out of this project, obviously it would be an honor to be selected, but we want the opportunity for what we come up with to be involved in all these situations, because what we're providing, what we're working on, is an opportunity for microgravity to be simulated without a super high cost. We've worked on a lot of 3D printed designs. We've worked on the motoring and behind it. We're working on figuring something that could work. You see our prototype right here, and if you go to the next slide, these are some of the similar prototypes and different types of clinostat. These are these machines that simulate microgravity, and Aaron he's going to talk a little bit about the function and how these machines actually work and how they simulate that microgravity.
Good evening, folks. Aaron here. So regardless of winning, we plan to continue our build and finish it, because we believe if we're able to achieve acceleration on the specimen at the bare minimum, which apparently currently is 0.22 Gs, if we can achieve anything related to that, we can really test all sorts of things regardless of going up to outer space. And that's, the altruism there speaks for itself. Now, of course, there's rotating clinostats or multi-gravity simulators only on one axis, but we hope to do it two and then add on a third. Now, this is just a 3D printed mock version. It's short of course, the motors and true effects in weight balance and symmetry in its mass. But later on, I will be building the true thing with accelerometers placed in different locations. And once we tune the RPMs and reduce that RPM or acceleration on the accelerometers down as low as we can, hopefully we're as close as we can, again, to 0.225 Gs. And if we can achieve that, the chances for further data is just ongoing. Our clinostat will have 2 frames plus a rotating base. So again, 3 axes. Third may not be necessary, but it hasn't been done and there hasn't reported data on such. So by that alone, we believe is worth it.
Now, this is the, I'm sure you're familiar with the formula and the standard, just the whole, the closure of the system that we've been provided with. This is the standards that we had to work under. This was the main reason why we decided to go with what we went with, because it has to go on board the ISS. And fungi especially, it's very durable. And it has several food sources to test it, to feed it throughout the different ones. So we can actually try 3 different growths in total. So the volume 1, the first part of the container, contains, they're all 2 by 10 to the 4th fungal spore carcinosis cells. And the first is suspended in 2.8 milliliters of polyester in saline media. And the second is 2.8 milliliters of agar in saline media. And the third and final one has an additional, it is the same as the prior 2 with the saline media in 2.8 milliliters, but it has an additional 2% composition of malt extract, make the process of the growth much more exponential in the final tube. The measurement of the fungal growth and the metabolism and any morphology that occurs during the time on the ISS, it will be hopefully able to be telegraphed in concert with all ground samples and control groups that we have via our simulated microgravity prototype, so that way we can compare and contrast the differences to see how it performs in true microgravity in space versus our simulation. And the growth behavior is the main thing that we will be studying and recording, due to it providing potential statistical analysis that will help groups in the future. not just our microgravity, but the cellular regeneration and growth itself. Or microscopy. We will use environmental SEM to study the growth geometry of each sample and compare them to ground versions.
So everyone that was involved in advising and everyone that had some type of expertise, that we consulted to get this this information and to come up with this experiment and this data. We hope you enjoyed the presentation, and thank you very much.
Yeah, we have about a few minutes for questions.
Shoot.
So I have a question.
You bet.
You showed a slide earlier with several different versions. Maybe they were early prototypes or something that
Yes,
you
sir.
tried. Tell me a little bit about what you learned through that process of going from one to the next to the next. How did you decide what to do first, second, third?
My first attempt at research was noticing single axis rotation, which showed, it's for geotropic effects and mainly done with plants. And then I said, well, that's not good enough. We need multi-axes. And it seemed like two achieved it. And being the mechanics interested man behind it all, I was interested in building it immediately. I'm a woodworker, and I build all sorts of mechanical devices related to my profession. My thoughts were obsessed with really reducing acceleration down more and more and more, down to the point where what type of motor am I trying to mess with? Micro pulses is a problem. The fluidity of the rotating whatever I use, bearings or fluid. How am I transferring electricity? Am I using lead? Am I using liquid? Am I using whatever? There's a range of variables that I just became obsessed with, really, and really interested in doing such. And one thing I had not mentioned prior, once we achieve our bare minimal acceleration in the center, I plan to have a straight line of such in the center of bare minimum, and then offset it and say, okay, this is, say, 0G, which is almost impossible to achieve, but say 0, and then 1G, 2G, 3G, all in the same model. In addition, have maybe 3 models rotating at different RPMs for different effects for different purposes.
And then my other question would be, that's good.
Yeah.
What is your expectation what do you expect to see? You said you're going to compare their growth rates. Tell me a little about what is it the length that they grow, or the mass that you get, or what do you expect to see difference between the microgravity environment and what you learn?
By itself, in general, growth is increased, and we know that and we have an electron microscope, so we're going to be able to have real-time evidence right there, and have different data samples of different RPMs or different accelerations, and we can compare those live. But the morphology, as far as I'm aware, like proteins change unexpectedly, but they do change. And we already have data from a class testing black mold. If we can duplicate or even improve the results of such, we're proving our ability, and then the sky's the limit as far as our subject.
A quick question. I think why fungi in general, why this fungus in particular, and what are the benefits of this kind of research?
What are the benefits of this kind of research? Well, we don't want something growing uncontrollably on a space station. That alone is pretty important. But from
The main reason is it's extremely durable form of fungus that not only hasn't been tested, but when placed in a 0G environment, if it isn't jostled on the trip up to space, because it shouldn't be obscenely smooth, but if it maintains its position in the very epicenter of its cylinder, and it's placed in 0G, we want to hopefully see 360-degree spherical growth of the organism, because if something can grow exponentially like that, there might be the possibility of replicating that procedure to any, because it is fungi right now, but it might be possible to replicate something like this in zero G with, for instance, some sort of grain, and that would increase crop yield exponentially. Now that's very far off from what we're experimenting with, but with the process of years and one team learning from another, it would be very possible to build that sort of thing. It's also extremely durable. I think I mentioned that before, where it can survive extreme radiation, extreme heat, extreme cold, all of which space can offer in one way or another, which is fortunate.
How did you guys come up with these, the idea? Where did it really come from?
Well, again,
So we started, we wanted to have something in the biological field just because we wanted to know a predictable either growth pattern or something that we, we knew was simple enough, also to fit to the parameters of the experiment. So where the 3D kind of came in was, well, how would we test or how would we get like an idea of what we're going to see and get these results? And we really had no idea. You could read it a million times. So when we came up with what would it look like to make a small simulator type of thing, and it took us to, it was funny because we all became these like masters of these really weird niche places in science, and we all went down our respective rabbit holes, and we found this type of information, and we're just very we're grateful to have a professor that gave us a green light and was like, yeah, we want to do, let's go for it. And specifically the fungus Matt was talking about, how durable it is. That's kind of what's specified it down. We talked about other fungus that are very durable, and yeah, it's been great, and I'll know a lot more about fungus than I ever intended to.
We're short on radiation's influence. We have a bit of that on aerospace, and that's my next challenge. But for now, this may be interesting enough.
Can someone give me the intuition? I haven't been familiar with clinostats. Can you give me the intuition of how the device works? The sample, what sort of trajectory is it following? And like the 0.22 Gs, are we oscillating between positive and negative 0.22, or what's actually happening inside of this machine?
Hopefully there won't be a vector. Hopefully there won't be a vector.
Okay.
And so you have an outer frame.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about that. So as far as the inner workings of the clinostat and the forces on said matter, hopefully there won't be a vector. Of course, we can't build it with that much precision because the more precise, the more wrong it will be. Anyways, clinostats have our version rotating on 2, then we'll have a third axis, an external frame that's rotating on 1 axis called X, another 90 degrees off of it, which would be Y. This you can see like that. And then the third would be rotating from the bottom, sort of like a lazy Susan. On each stage, I will mount an accelerometer as center as possible and measure it, adjust its RPM, then move on to the next. Do both together, measure it, adjust RPM, and then move on to the next. All 3 at once. And as soon as I achieve the lowest value possible, then we can move forward.
It's not a question, but I really love the fact that when you said you're all masters of obscure versions of science, you all smiled at the same time, which is awesome. That's great.
I agree with that, yes.
I think we want to get a photo.
Yeah.
We can play with you and the guys before they leave.
Okay.
You bet.
We can come right here, and we can, from one corner to here.
What's that?
What if you come here?
Sorry.
Go, right here, yes. Would it go right there?
again, that's not your slideshow. Do you know how to get to the next one? I don't.
No, but yeah, that's not my. That's the last slideshow.
Let's see. You know how to-
Grab Justin real quick. I wonder if you minimize that one, if that's, I see so many of them up, it just might not be.
That one's not mine, but oh, there we go. All right.
Perfect, okay. Maximize.
You just go to slideshow. There you go.
And then,
They can start.
Perfect.
and I'll let you know when you have 2 and 1 minute left. So.
And make sure you're there. You go.
Just like this, you can hear me.
Can you turn it on? There's a button.
Oh, well, that would certainly. And like this, you can hear me? Okay. Hi there. My name is Bailey Krim, and under the advisory of Professor Francis Cardieri and with the assistance of my partner, Grace Lowe, I present to you investigating the epigenetic effects of microgravity on the gravireceptors and DNA methylation levels of adult moon jellyfish medusae. Those who venture into space exploration suffer a great deal for their bravery, and just as me and astronaut Hoberg were discussing before the program, there are many physiological effects of microgravity on the human body and plenty of other organisms, and most of these physiological effects can be tied directly to microgravity, the lack thereof gravity. These include cardiovascular dysfunction, errors in optical function, bone density loss, muscle degeneration, and orthostatic hypertension, specifically orthostatic disorientation, which most organisms show effects of when exposed to microgravity. But what would happen if this astronaut were to come back to Earth and have a child? Would the DNA and the trauma of microgravity would that be translated through the DNA of his father, or would there be no effect? It's really important for us to understand how this is going to affect future generations, as with the furtherment of space travel and furtherment of technology, we can begin to understand why these things happen, as there is much proof of them in the scientific community, such as genome methylation pattern changes in thale crests. Thanks to a Chinese satellite called SJ-10 that sent up hundreds of seeds of these thale crests. They were brought back, reproduced, and the F1 generation of this species was studied, and there was evidence of the genome methylation pattern actually was significantly decreased in these creatures. And it's moon jellyfish are going to be our model for our experiment. There was a study done in 1991 through NASA, and this study was actually groundbreaking, as there were multiple experiments sent up to the International Space Station and brought back on the SLS-1. And during this 1991 experiment, we're specifically studying the ropallium, which you can see on that top diagram there. The ropallium is basically the control box for the understanding of proprioception and kinesthesia for these creatures. This is where they get all of their information about where they are in relativity to the Earth. And it is specifically this structure we're going to be studying, because in the 1991 study, the moon jellyfish that were brought back showed extreme signs of vertigo. Their pulsation rates were through the roof, and their pulses per minute were increased as well. Also, moon jellies, sending them up in their polyp form before they, we'll be sending them up in their polyp form, bringing them back down, and growing them to full term, so bringing them to their teenage ephyra stage and then to full adult medusae stage. That process in and of itself is an epigenetic process, as these are one of the only creatures on the planet that reproduce both sexually and asexually. So those results can be individually studied, even if we're not able to reproduce the jellyfish to a second F1 generation. So for our experiment, I have calculated the approximate salinity solution of ocean water, and so that's going to be 2.75 milliliters of distilled water distilled through reverse osmosis, and 90 milligrams of marine salt. In the middle chamber, we're going to be using the 3-chambered FME mini lab. The middle chamber is going to contain 8 jellyfish polyps, and either end chamber is going to be containing their food source. That'll be mollusk larvae, as it is small enough not to overpower the polyps, which are also zooplankton. And we will be sending them up, bringing them back down, and comparing them to a control group, which will be fed at the same time. We also think moon jellyfish are going to be a great example for this project because approximately the dormant conditions of a space shuttle are within the temperature, comfort of this creature, as well as polyps can survive for years without food. And like I said, they're happy at approximate of like 21 to 23 degrees Celsius, which should be within the constraints of the dormant temperature on the shuttle. So we're going to be sending those up, bringing them back down compared to a control group, and we're going to encourage the reproduction of both groups so that we can study the F1 generation as well. DNA methylation is our best way currently in the scientific community of understanding the epigenetic effects of DNA on a creature. So by bringing that into this experiment, we are going to further our understanding of how epigenetics can affect any organism. And in the future, we can use this research for humans to ensure that those who go into space can be taking preliminary cautions for the safety of their families. Our hypothesis is that when brought back down, the moon jellyfish that are the parent generation is going to have a significant decrease in DNA methylation levels. And the F1 generation, we believe, will also have a decrease. First generation, approximate 20% decrease. Second generation, approximate 15% decrease. We also are going to be using a qualitative observational function, qualitative observational behavioral observation in order to observe if the jellies have any disarray with their sense of proprioception. We're also going to be specifically measuring the size and shape of the gravireceptors, which are in their rhopallium. In humans, these are found in our ears, just as little hairs that crystals run around the hairs and let us know where we're at. We're also going to be testing the pulses per minute. We're going to be watching their stride patterns, testing how quickly they can get to food source and water, things of that nature, to see the difference in their proprioception. And we do suspect that the first generation is going to be showing extreme signs of vertigo, and perhaps the F1 generation is not going to be showing such extreme signs, but there will be noticeable changes. We suspect also that the gravireceptors are going to shrink in size, and I thank you so much for your time, and Hopeberg especially for your time being here and speaking to us all and showing us everything that you've done.
Thanks. Anyway, that was very interesting.
Thank you.
I am not a geneticist, so I apologize. I'm going to ask you a couple of rookie questions.
Yeah, of course.
Tell me, what is the difference between what you're proposing here and what happened on, I think you said it was STS-1, where they did moon jellies? Is the new thing, is it this methylation DNA part, or what's different?
Testing the DNA methylation levels will give us a much deeper understanding of why this is happening to these creatures, but also they didn't have all of the image processing analysis that we have. Now we can take cell samples and look at the actual DNA. We just have a lot more technology now to be able to observe what will be the same results. And in this experiment, we're going to be attempting to encourage the jellyfish to reproduce and create an F1 generation, whereas on the initial experiment, there was only one generation of jellyfish.
Great. And then how long were the jellies in the microgravity environment in the original experiment versus what do we expect now?
I believe this experiment is going to be approximate a month, about a month. I think the initial experiment was longer, as the SLS, that was the Space Lab Life Sciences program by NASA, and that was a multitude of experiments. absolutely groundbreaking work. So I actually don't know the exact time, but I'm certain they were up there much longer. And as I stated, moon jellyfish, when in their polyp state, are pretty resilient to most conditions. In fact, actually, jellyfish, when threatened, can return to their polyp stage when they feel distressed. So quite resilient creatures.
Interesting. When I get threatened, I go to a field
Yeah.
visit as well,
Yeah,
so I
yes.
can relate, right? I have a question. You mentioned some percentages that you had expectations or predictions of
Yes.
how much there would be by generation, how much change there would be in the DNA. How did you come up with those? What's that based upon?
So I didn't include that in this slide because I didn't want to take too much time, but in my paper I wrote about an experiment where mice were kept in an orthostatic position that mimicked microgravity. I believe, they were kept there for 23 days in that orthostatic suspension. And those mice showed a 20% differential decrease with their DNA methylation levels. So that was specifically in their ovaries. So that is the only approximation that I could find in research. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks. Thanks. Thank you.
Could I steal you again?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Nobody wants to take a picture with the director of the Moonshot Museum?
Please.
Or no, sorry, I switched it. So here's the jellyfish. No, switch. 1, 3, 1, 2, 3. Sorry. 2, right. There's not 2 jellyfish poses. That's the jellyfish.
Now we're gonna see
enzymatic
enzymatic
degradation.
degradation.
Yes.
Much more clear story.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yep. Not sure, maybe it's just.
Was one of the pieces that was actually something when there was Spaceflight that we tested after.
Gotcha.
But I was just, okay, then I like that there was a, yeah.
Yeah.
Theoretically, yeah.
Before you get started, I just have one request. Can you make sure that whoever's talking uses the microphone so that they can hear you on the live stream? Yes. Thank you so much.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our presentation. My name is Faith Dunn.
Can you turn, sorry, there's a power button, sorry.
Hear me now? Awesome. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our presentation. I'm so glad to have you all. My name is Faith Dunn. I'm grade 13.
I'm Connor McDonough. I'm grade 14.
My name is Maya Burns. I'm grade 13.
All right, so our experiment is on the effects of microgravity on the enzymatic degradation of polyurethane by Penicillium chrysogenum. So the reason our team decided to do this experiment stems from our passion to make a positive impact on the environment and is to solve one of the biggest issues surrounding it, which is plastic waste. The rapid accumulation of plastic waste poses a major threat to our environment and the safety of our people. and traditional recycling methods are no longer going to be sustainable in the future on Earth or in a space environment. Millions of tons of plastic are produced annually, nearly half of them go to waste. And the ever-increasing demand for these materials directly correlates with increased waste. And if current trends continue, recycling plastic is going to prove to be an impossible task. That's why it's imperative that we look into more innovative, sustainable, and natural ways to deal with this, which brings us to the purpose of our experiment, which will be to determine the behavior of plastic-eating enzymes in a microgravity environment. And for this experiment, if it proves to be fruitful, I feel like it will drive advancements in the field of biotechnology and bioengineering. And these advancements, I feel like they're going to trickle down into industries, and companies will be able to use these new technologies and will be able to use these new ideas and research into advancing these different fields. And valuable resources can also be produced from the enzymatic degradation of plastic as well.
Okay. So the specific polyurethane that we decided to use for this experiment, the specific plastic we decided to use for this experiment is polyurethane. So up in the top left-hand corner, you can see a diagram of its molecular structure. And if you pay close attention, that red section, the hard segment, is especially difficult to degrade. So if it's just sitting there in landfills, which, as Connor said, over 50% of produced polyurethanes end up in landfills, it's difficult to degrade naturally, and it can produce toxins and carcinogens, 360 million tons every year. So that's around 180 million tons every year that end up in landfills. So it's imperative that we find a way to break down this hard segment that's safe. The specific polyurethane we decided to use is called Imprenyl. So it's a colloid polyester polyurethane, which means it has ester bonds in its R group in like the extra sections of the molecule. And the colloid means that it's in a liquid suspension. So it's pieces of plastic in a liquid suspension, and that makes it easier for the microorganism to degrade, because those hard sections would, in like a piece of plastic, be hidden underneath the surface. So it becomes easier to degrade as it's in a liquid suspension, easier access. So the organism we decided to use for this is Penicillium chrysogenum, which is one of the same organisms that gave us penicillin. It can produce penicillin, especially under stressful conditions, which perhaps microgravity is that condition. So it has the ability to degrade plastic, specifically polyurethane, from its need to degrade lignocellulase in nature. So it's found in soils. It needs to degrade plant biomass to eat that, use that as its carbon source in nature, so it can degrade lignocellulase, polyurethane, and other complex, difficult to break down molecules. So here's a visual representation of what polyurethane biodegradation looks like. On the left here is a different fungus degrading a piece of polyurethane foam over the course of 12 days, which is approximately how long this experiment would run in microgravity. On the right, you can see this is Imprenyl. So this is the liquid suspension that we would be using in our experiment. On the left of each of those photos is pure Imprenyl. It appears white, and then after it has been degraded, on the right of each image, you can see it now appears clear. So this is a mock-up of what our experiment would look like. On the left-hand side, in volume 1, there is the lyophilized organism. So it means it's like freeze-dried and inactive. In the second volume, we have an agar cylinder, which will be filled with the Imprenyl. That is the plastic that will serve as the principal carbon source for the organism. Surrounding the cylinder is mineral broth that will be nutrient enough to reactivate the organism out of its freeze-dried state, but not enough that it will use that as its carbon source, and it will be forced to seek out the Imprenyl. In the third section is the fixative that will stop the experiment once its time is up. Wait, I need to do this, sorry. The forms of analysis, we want to look at visually what the agar cylinder will look like after the experiment. It should be clear. As you saw on the slide before, it will turn from white to clear if it's been degraded. We want to use light and electron microscopy in order to look at the depth of the hyphal growth that the fungus makes within the agar cylinder. Visual analysis would be the infernal, the degree of clearness. And we want to use RTQ-PCR, which is reverse transcriptase polymerase chain reaction, to look at the transcribed enzymes. So we can identify those enzymes. We know what they are because they've been identified to degrade lignocellulase. So we want to use that to identify their production, as well as mass or various forms of spectrometry in order to look at the molecular products of the degradation.
All right, but why is this also important? Like, what's the big picture whenever we're going to be running this experiment? What's the outcome going to be? Well, as we all know, polyurethane production is only going to increase, especially as time goes on and our population increases. Polyurethane is such a versatile molecule. It can be turned into so many different products, and it is so useful due to its resistance to degradation. It can be used in space, in infrastructure, medical facilities. Getting rid of it is virtually impossible and extremely unrealistic, unlike other one-time use plastics. Okay, rising production, though, as we said, already means rising in waste as well, on top of our already existing waste problem, meaning we need to look into better management systems into plastic waste on Earth, but also in space. As we start looking forward to the future, when we're going on space voyages and colonizing different planets, we're going to need management systems to deal with our plastic waste issues. And a good system would be enzymatic fungal degradation. Unlike other waste systems like heat or mechanical or chemical that are very dangerous and very costly, fungal degradation is a good alternative to that. But however, we do not know what microgravity would be like on our specific organism, Penicillium chrysogenum. There have been many studies done that show that microgravity can cause genetic mutations and can affect the metabolism of different organisms, which may lead to higher efficiency rates. And it can also, due to the microgravity in space, can cause stress levels on penicillin, which may increase penicillium production. Meaning that while in space, while degrading plastics, you can also be making your own antibiotics and medications. There's other organisms too that do break down PUR fungally, that creates food from it as well. So you can break down plastics and create food. And then when you're in space, as everybody knows, you need to have a system that's closed. So you need to rely on reusing products over time, which would be great. The capability to degrade makes it, Penicillium chrysogenum's capability to degrade breaks it down to building blocks to be reutilized later on. With the possibility of penicillin production, while breaking down plastics, companies can create a more circular economy, reusing the products that they had prior, makes medicines to sell during the process, or foods, and less money will be going into the new materials. As well, P. chrysogenum is also more affordable than the other funguses that are on the market currently, making this also more economically beneficial. Yeah, that has nothing to do with this. I just thought it was funny. But yeah, thank you guys so much for coming. Thank you those at home watching this. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, thank you. That was excellent. I really enjoyed. I thought you made a really compelling case for the research and recycling off-world, and also talking about the growing trash problem when you're on Earth. Two questions. I think one would be, do you see this particular research in microgravity? Why microgravity? Does that accelerate its translatability into a product that we could market on Earth?
Yes. So if there is a chance of a mutation occurring where it becomes more efficient and it can produce more enzymes, or it just becomes better, because there have been studies done that shows that sometimes carbon sources can be changed and become more efficient that way too. If that comes back to Earth, we can re-lyophilize it, and then we can use that in future experiments, and then use technologies like CRISPR and genetic alterations to translate across other organisms as well for them to degrade and such. I hope that answered the question for you.
And then I wonder if you could just walk us through the different types of spectrometry you'd be using it, and why those particular ones, particularly TB and IR and whatnot.
Sure. So in our research, we found similar articles on fungal biodegradation, and they all used IR and UV spectrometry to look at the molecular components. So we're basing this off of previously done studies. We would like to do every type of analysis available to us, and we aren't sure at this point which of those is going to be the most available, so we would like to list all of them, because hopefully we would be able to do all of them to get different answers. So I hope that answers your other question.
I guess I have a short question. The idea here is for going to microgravity, the organism may get better eating plastic, I think, right?
Yes.
How will you know that it's due to the microgravity versus maybe due to elevated radiation levels that would be in the space station, for example?
I guess we don't at this point, but it would just be the effects of that environment.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have 2 control experiments set up to be done on Earth, which would include the identical setup with the Impranil and a setup without the Impranil to see how it would grow into the plastic on Earth. We did not consider the
Okay.
possibility of
Just a
radiation.
suggestion, Maybe a third control that
Right.
gets an X-ray or something.
Right.
To see what
Yeah.
happens. So, okay, interesting. Thanks.
And one more question. So, the great presentation.
Thank you.
So piggybacking on Mike's question, and by the way, I asked this of experiments that are actually already flying in space too, so
Okay.
don't take it personally. But the same kind of question about why microgravity, I'm just curious to go a little deeper on that. So does this technology already work on Earth?
It has not been widely implemented, but it's been shown to work.
Okay.
So it's been
shown to work.
shown to work in laboratory settings and research settings, but it hasn't been widely implemented. So we're hoping to look at. It hasn't been researched in microgravity yet.
Yep.
So we're hoping to see whether that's efficient, whether it works at all, to see if that would be a possibility to use these waste systems that are like just coming up. They're just being birthed in research on Earth to see if that would be possible in like the ISS or on colonies.
And so it sounds like it could go either way. It could be more
It could.
efficient, or it might turn out for reasons we don't understand
Right.
that it doesn't work at all in
Right.
microgravity.
We don't know at this point. It hasn't been conducted.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
The door's open.
Super duper. 2 more, guys. 2 more.
Oh, 2 more altogether?
Yeah, 2 more.
Okay.
This is your Gelation.
Also, just a reminder, when you're presenting, make sure whoever's speaking has the microphone so they can hear it on the live stream.
Line is reconnecting. My access to this file has changed.
So you block them out.
Shoot. you block me out, I'm gonna be really sign in, Justin, edit. I would love to.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, good luck, guys. I'm gonna go get the other group. Remember, don't leave, because we're gonna do a German-American thing, okay?
And if you don't mind, test the mic first. Like speak into it.
Hello.
Okay, you're good. Thank you so much.
Yep. All right, so our presentation is the effects of microgravity on gelation. Okay, here we go. About us. So we're a part of the German Chamber of Commerce. Most of us work 4 days a week and go to CCAC on Fridays. Most of us work from 8 to 4, and then, of course, we would go to CCAC on Friday. We're a part of the apprenticeship program at our jobs. And then gelation. Gelation is a formation of gel from a system of polymers. The most common form of this is found in gelatin, where water is mixed with an ingredient derived from collagen. This process thickens the water to the point of being able to self-form a structure.
Okay, so our experiment, volume 1, which will be on the left, will be filled with 7 milliliters of water. Volume 2, which will be on the right, will be filled with 100 milligrams of gelatin. In space, the astronaut will release the clamp, shake it for about 30 seconds to a minute, and it'll mix together. And the tube is called a Type 2 FME mini lab. The justification. This experiment could prove incredibly useful due to how often gelation is used in medical applications. If the process of gelation forms bubbles differently or forms in a way that isn't natural, we can begin to find ways to make sure the process is consistent regardless of the location. If the process is impossible to solve, then alternatives could be studied and improved based on the results of the experiment. That's about it. It was a very simple experiment.
Some questions? Yeah. Yeah. So let me make sure there's a tube, it has water and some jelly or gel of some kind, right?
Can you also leave the mic on?
Oh, you want the mic on?
Yeah, and answer your questions.
Okay.
Yeah. So, what's the difference if I go look at that gel before we should take it apart and shake it versus I look at it afterwards? What are the kinds of things that I'm going to see in there?
The different kinds of things you'll see before and after the effects.
What are the differences? Yeah.
Well, gelatin mainly comes in like a sugary form whenever you open the package.
Okay.
And then you'll have water on the other side, and then whenever they're in space, they'll release it, they'll mix together, and it'll create, like, you know how you have Jell-O in your fridge?
Yep.
It should create that. It's not going to be in a freezer or anything, it shouldn't be, so it might take a little longer, but it should form, you know, that Jell-O type of form.
And so you're going to be then, how will you get the data back? Are you going to, then they're just going to package that gelatin up and send it back to Earth, and then you look at it here, or are they taking pictures, or?
Just whatever they can, because they'll be busy up there. It just depends. Like, they can write down what happened over the days, then try to take pictures. But yeah, the thing we'll be mainly seeing first is what it'll be before and after.
Okay. Before, as the powder, and then
Yes.
the gelatin afterwards?
Yes.
Okay. And then, if you're trying to see the effect of microgravity on this, you're going to have a control on Earth that you'll try to do at the same time, or what? How will you know what the effect of the difference is by the gravity or the lack of gravity? Any ideas?
From what I've seen, it won't really change that much. We're just trying to see, since there's been many experiments, we're just trying to see if it'll do anything different, perhaps. You guys have anything to add to that? That's about it for that one.
If you could do many experiments, this is just one tube with the gelatin, right? If NASA said, hey, you can have 5 or 6 of them, right? Any ideas what you would do in the other ones to try to see a difference? Or what other tests would you run? Would you do 5 of the same and see if it was repeatable, or?
Maybe have a couple the same, change maybe the amount of water and the amount of gelatin, just to see if there are different results.
Any thoughts about you said the astronaut's going to shake it or try to mix it together, right?
Yes.
Any idea, like, there's some variation in that, right? Like how, if he shakes it for 30 seconds, or if I shake it versus another astronaut shakes it, we might do it a little bit differently. How could you maybe give some more guidance or make that part of the experiment a little more controlled?
So pretty much a basic 30 seconds would be fine, but if they go a little longer, that may lead to different results. I mean, you don't shake it like super hard, do you? The gelatin.
I might.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Depending on how hard they do shake the gelatin in the tube, that might lead to different results. But other than that, I mean, a basic shake should do it.
Yeah, I guess if I was going to do it, maybe I would go to that astronaut before he gets into space and have him come to my lab and let him shake one, right? And then I just hold on to that one, see what happens, and then send him to space, and hopefully the same astronaut will shake it about the same way, right? And then you could see something that would take out the astronaut effect, maybe. It's just an idea.
That could happen.
Yeah.
There's many ways you could do this experiment.
Nice and simple.
Is there any prior work, like any research that's been done in space on gelatins? Or?
There's been a few things that I've seen. Most of the things I've seen is them like bouncing it around, seeing the different things they can do with gelatin in space. That's about all I've seen. Have you guys seen anything else? Same things.
I'm going with gelatin.
Okay.
I just wondered too, I was looking at your paper and you mentioned kind of why you chose gelatin in particular in relationships to the human body, and just wondered if you could tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, okay. So as you see in the paper, some of our body is made out of the what's it called again? Collagen. Yes. How much was it again? Was it
25% to make a body's protein?
It was 25 to 30%.
Yeah, if I remember correctly.
A lot of medical research has been brought into that. Anything else about that? That's how far we went into the whole collagen part of that. I mean, maybe you guys know more because have you guys done any medical stuff before? No? Okay.
I have a few doctor's appointments coming up.
Okay.
I like the experiment from being a simple piece, right? It's nice simple testing. You can look at that data and it doesn't have all the complications of some of the instrumentation and things. It's like, let's do it, let's look at it and see what happens. That's how we learn stuff.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. might have to switch it on, so I have to test it.
Now, sounds on.
Good.
Okay, I haven't been introducing all the groups, but I wanted to introduce this group. Judges from last year, you might remember these guys. So these guys presented last year on the same topic. They took feedback into account and revised their experiment. They have some new ideas. So we're excited to have some veterans returning. Not gonna lie, last year I did trick them into coming by saying there was an open bar, but this year they came on their own volition. So we're real happy for our last group of the evening. So go ahead, guys.
Hello. So, the effects of microgravity on concrete. So, concrete is everywhere. You cannot go anywhere without seeing concrete. You can't step on anything without seeing concrete. It's everywhere. It's literally the foundation of our society. So, all right. I put a quote there at the bottom from the journal Open Engineering, which was published in March of this year. And we'll talk a little bit more about that report in a bit. So how concrete is made. So batching is the process of measuring different concrete materials such as cement, coarse aggregates, sand, and water. Then you mix it together. Sorry, not a public speaker. Compaction is the process where air bubbles are eliminated from the fresh concrete. And curing is where it dries out from the hydration process and, sets. Yep, there it is. So, here on Earth, the strength of concrete is affected by the environmental factors, especially temperature and moisture. Temperature variation can accelerate the deterioration process of set concrete. So, Starcrete was an experiment published in March of 2023 on the Open Journal. And basically what they did was they successfully produced concrete from potato starch, salt, and lunar/Martian soil. Concrete made with the Martian soil was found to achieve compressive strengths of 72 megapascals, and lunar soil achieved 91 megapascals. For reference, normal concrete mix here on Earth achieves only 32 megapascals of compressive strength. Now in 2019, several batches of concrete were produced on board the ISS with alcohol added at different stages to stop the hydration process for studying, basically to see how well it was setting. And for some of the batches, a centrifuge was used to simulate gravity on Mars, the Moon, and here on Earth, so that they can be brought back down and they could compare the strengths. So our question is, how does microgravity affect the chemical makeup of the bonds of concrete? Just standard concrete mix with water and concrete mix, where you go to Home Depot, you just buy a bag, that. Here on Earth, the gravity affects the mixing process and also the curing process. In ordinary concrete, the character of the concrete is largely determined by the water to cement ratio. So basically, the more concrete you have, the more dry it's going to be, the less it's going to compact well. But if you put too much moisture in it, it's not going to dry out in the way you want. So you have to get that ratio right. The mixture must have just enough water to ensure that the aggregate, that's what I just said. We are wondering how the effects of anti-gravity and the amount of water and cement mixed into the small tube will differentiate the structure of the concrete. So basically our experiment is as easy as possible for the astronauts to achieve. So the tube, we didn't add a diagram here like the other groups did, but the tube is divided in half, and we have concrete mix on one side and water on the other. All the astronaut has to do once they get up there is unclamp it, shake it, that's it. As easy as possible, and then we're going to bring it back down and we're going to put it in a hydraulic press and we're going to see what it can do based off of the one that we do here on Earth. there will be an identical experiment here on Earth too. Oh, whoops. Yeah, that's about it. Is there any questions?
So I have a question. Really interesting idea, and obviously there's people doing work on it right now. It's a very important topic. We're getting ready to go back to the moon. There's not microgravity, but low gravity, and we need landing pads and sidewalks and who knows what. Right? Tell me about. I'm not an expert in concrete. What I understand is you're going to mix the water and the concrete, and then it will set up by the time you come back, and you're going to do a strength test on that. Right? How long does it take? If you did that experiment on Earth, how long does it take for there to get to be a solid piece of concrete? Is it hours or days or weeks or?
For solid, about 48 hours. But quickset concrete is dry in about 40 minutes.
Okay.
So
it's going to have a chance to come to its eventual strength all during the time of microgravity.
it will be 100% set by the time it leaves the ISS.
Okay, cool. Then I'm not familiar with these tubes, but I know that they're very small. Is that what kind of testing challenges does that make? If I picture somebody testing concrete, they make like a giant column, right? And you're going to have a little tiny couple millimeters across. How will you test something like that? Have you given an idea on that, or have you tried to do it, or what do you think?
Well, they make hydraulic presses that you can compact something into, where you could literally just make a little mold and have the rod come down that is the size of the mold, so that only the thing inside the shell is affected.
Okay.
So that's
what you're planning.
Yes, that is the plan.
Cool. My last question, is there any other thing that you can do looking at the concrete or under the microscope or weighing its density or something? Are there other things you could do to this material other than just get that one number, that strength number?
So my hypothesis would be that visually you would be able to see. So my question originally last year when we did this was, how would the bonds be affected by not having gravity to actually pull it down and set it? So I feel like air bubbles, air pockets, more things like that, you would be visual in the finish of the concrete.
Yep.
Random question, which way are you going to press it? So you have a tube. Are you going to push on it from the side or on the end, or which?
Long ways.
From the top?
Long ways down. So the hydraulic press would be moving parallel to the length of the tube. Try to get the maximum strength out of that rod that we can.
And be able to compare the strength to the one that we did here and the one that formed and bonded up in space.
Number two, if you could just tell us a little about your particular mix of concrete. You mentioned starcrete up there. I saw potato starch and wondered how that was part of the story, and just what your mix is that you want to send to space, and why that particular mix.
Well, we plan to use just plain old-fashioned quick mix that you can go to any hardware store and get and pour yourself. So basically, it's the lowest value option. It's not cheap, so to say, but it is an economical option that if you produce cornstarch and salt and lunar rock on the moon, that's everywhere, but here on Earth, that's might be harder to get. And on the moon, potato starch might be harder to get as well. So if we have already mass-produced quick-set concrete that we can test here and there, then we can make structures on the moon, hopefully, and on Mars, hopefully, for a budget, so to speak, but without actually sacrificing any structural integrity, because it's the same stuff we use here on Earth. But the experiment is to see how well our structural integrity here on Earth stands up to one made up in space.
So I think one of the things that we were doing in the beginning is we were overthinking this, actually, because when you think about it, concrete's simple. You know, it's boom, boom, and then it sets. So when we were overthinking it, we were like, we're looking into this too much because there's actually not that much to it. We just got to actually figure it out and see what the difference of the two is.
The 2019 experiment, what have you learned from that, and what are you guys building on that or doing anything different than that?
So NASA outlines the steps of the experiment, but they don't actually publish the results, which was difficult for us.
Okay.
But yeah, basically what they did was they had little baggies, and they had maybe 40 of them, I think it was, and they would use alcohol to freeze it at each stage. Like one would set for a day, one would set for 2 days, one would set for 3 days, and then they'd compare how well structurally they had bonded together. And that's the same that they did with the ones that they mocked the gravity of the moon and Mars on. Exactly the same. So.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Tell the stream we're going to go to judging.
Alright guys, that's all our live stream presentations. We're going to go to judging now, so we'll have the results here pretty soon. Thank you all so much. He went to eat. He's here still? I'll leave the gift bag. Okay. All right, guys. I hope that wasn't too long of a delay. We're happy to announce our winners. So if you are across the street in the Student Services Center, I'll be right over with your trophy. So don't leave because I'm coming with your trophy. You all know how long it takes to walk, probably 5.5 minutes. So our 3 finalists, it was tough, right? The judges said all the experiments were of such a high quality, it's tough for them to make a decision, but that's why they get paid the big bucks, so they were able to do so no problem. In no particular order, remember our 3 finalists are just the 3 finalists who will advance to the next round. One of those experiments will fly to the ISS. Finalist number 1 from CCAC is the effect of microgravity on the enzymatic degradation of polyurethane by penicillin, sponsored by CCAC faculty Patricia Donahue and Ann Duffy. So if you are in that group and your names are Maya, Faith, and Connor, congratulations. You are our first finalist from CCAC. Our second finalist from CCAC is the team with the title Microgravity-Induced Effects on the Behavior and Morphology of Moon Jellyfish and Their Epigenetic Inheritance, sponsored by Francis Cartieri. So if you were the Moon Jellyfish group and your names are Bailey, Grace, or Sarah, congratulations, you guys are our second finalist. Our third finalist, again in no particular order, was the group that did design and testing of a novel multi-axis microgravity simulator versus the real thing, a test case using the black mold, Latin scientific name I'm not going to try to pronounce. Again, sponsored by Francis Cartieri. This team was Matt, Mamadou, Anin, Aaron, and Ajani. So our 3 finalists, Polyurethane, Moon Jellyfish, and Multi-Axis Microgravity Simulator. There is one more prize though, and this prize technically has the name Spirit Award. It was the crowd favorite award. I think this year we would also say it is the most improved award from last year. Our Spirit of Student Spaceflight Experiment Program Award goes to the Factory Grunts for their presentation on concrete in space. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in the live stream. Again, if you want an award, I'll be over again in about 5.5 minutes when I walk there with your trophy. Thank y'all for participating, and thanks to those of you who attended. Special thanks again to our judges, Moonshot Museum and Astrobotic for their support of this event, and we hope to see you guys again next year. One more thing. Tune in Thursday night for the launch of SpaceX 29 when the winning team from last year's experiment will blast off into space. I think it's at 8:28 p.m. We'll have a link available on this channel. Thank you guys so much.